Hey, good evening, everybody. We've managed to squeak out a little isolated storm in northwest Texas. It's interesting, yesterday the models weren't really forecasting that, and we thought there might be an outside chance, and sure enough, let's take a look at that cell here. This is located just east of Wichita Falls, and it's got the appearance of a strong multi-cell tracking eastward down this US 82 there. So it looks like it's heading for the Gainesville area. Let's take a quick look at the radar images, the different tilts, and see what's going on here. Now this is the first I've seen of this cell, and we can see that there's not a whole lot of the higher reflectivities on the south side. They're kind of concentrated more near the center of the cell, so you kind of see what's going on here. So this is one reason I think it might be a little bit marginal. Let's go up to higher levels and look at the beware, or the weak echo region itself. And yeah, it's got some overhang. This is up at about 27,000 feet here. You can see those higher reflectivities right this area here. That's up at 3.1, and this is up at about 22,000. So that's sitting over the updraft area right there. And if we take a 3D look at that, we're going to go from northwest to southeast, and you can see a very classic weak echo region right in this area here. So this is all the updraft going up into the storm, and this is the overhang in this area here, and then over here we have the forward flank downdraft. So there's a quick look at that, different locations, and the cell itself topping out at about 40,000 feet. So at this time we've got just a severe thunderstorm warning, and they're calling for tennis ball sized hail, 60-mile-an-hour gusts. So as you can see, that's the only cell right there. And let's take a look at the synoptic pattern and see where everything fits in. For synoptic, we're going to have to go out even further, out to this map here. So let's put up all the isobars and fronts. And there we go right there. Let's see here. I don't think we have the current data. Let me retrieve that real quick. And while we're waiting, let me make sure the feed is looking good. I've got 0 dropped frames on my end. I'm getting some weird stuff on the YouTube side. Let me refresh my page here. You can see I had red going in this area, this status window. And while it's doing that, let me take a look at the chat and everything. See here, video output low. I don't see any dropped frames here. Okay, Ryan Toomey's out there in Florida. Says it's warmer, partly cloudy conditions in South Florida, low 80s. Waiting on weather change there in a few days. North Texas hammered tonight, and baseball-sized hail indeed. Alex Front is with us, and Ron Chalfant. Nick Tribb is here. Alexi Pinkson-Walsh. Erica Baker. Upper 50s there in Kansas. Overcast, light rain. Alex Front says, look like pretty good storms fired there on the Red River. We have Funwood Tech and Burl H. Saturday's late season snowstorm in eastern and northern Iowa. Shirley Keast is here. Carl Berghoff. Mick. I think Mick is down there in Australia. Adam Davis reporting mid-40s in Clarion, Pennsylvania. Got Chris Tyne here reporting lots of chasers on the roads. Got Justin Pulliam here, Megan John, 39 in Minnesota, Greg Schultz. And Funwood Tech says video and audio is good. All right, let's pull up that chart sequence here. So this is what we call the synoptic scale pattern, and this gives us an idea where that storm, which is way down in here, where it fits in with the big picture. So what do we see here? Well, if you take a look way up to the northeast, big old 1040 millibar high across the northeast. So we've got a lot of cool air streaming southwestward and covering this entire area here, and that's helping to reinforce this frontal boundary running from about Alabama up to the Red River. So that's one reason we haven't seen much northward progression of that front. Typically we have a warm front that lifts northward, and we would see it today maybe up in this area, but that hasn't happened because there's a lot of cool air just up to the north. We've also got the dry line down to the south. That's probably what they've got drawn there, and looks like a Pacific system still out to the west. Now we take a look at the mesoscale. There's Texas and Oklahoma. And I did try to hook up one of the webcams to do a paper analysis. I've got this Microsoft LifeCam HD3000, and it's not working with Windows, so I'm going to probably have to order a Logitech one and get that running. Now I do have another Logitech camera, and there it is right there. It's being used for the wide shot, but yeah, this little Microsoft camera, it's just not working, so it's probably going to be a few days before we get that up and running. Okay, let's do a chart analysis here, looking at the Texas and Oklahoma map. You can see the north winds there in Oklahoma and along the Red River, contrasting with the south winds coming up from East Texas. So a little bit of a convergence zone in here, and let's find out exactly where that is. Looks like it's running kind of like that right there. So that little cell we have up in Wichita Falls, wow, that's way up north. Let me check the data consistency here. 43 dew point at the surface, that would mean that that's really elevated. So I'm going to go and double check that. Always got to do that when you're dealing with, when you're just sitting down. Okay, so yeah, it does look like we have an issue going on here. SPC reporting 65, 64. All right, so we got to figure out what's going on here. There we go. That looks a little bit better. So scratch everything you've heard in the past 2 minutes. Try this again. Okay, new analysis to work with. Okay, let's do a south to north traversal. That's one good way to deal with things when we first sit down. So Waco 74 over 68. DFW 75 over 66. That's not much of a change. Gainesville 71 over 64. Okay, that's cooling down a little bit. And then we go up to Ardmore 64 over 61. That's much cooler. And then we get into cooler air 64 over 64 at Pauls Valley and 62 over 56 at Oklahoma City. So somewhere along the Red River, that's where we hit that cold front. Similar thing we can do along that line. 77, 76 Mineral Wells, then down to 71, a little bit cooler. So we're going to put that boundary kind of through here and maybe bring that down through around Greenville. And let's find the tail end of that. So I'm going to probably, for now, call that a stationary front. So the markings are going to be kind of like that. So yeah, this looks pretty good. Our front, or our thunderstorm located right there, right on that boundary. And you'll notice that it's very close to the moisture axis where that impinges on the boundary. So like if we go west to east and find the moisture axis, that's going to be right in here, and we can see that that's kind of feeding right up to that storm. So higher theta E's lift along the boundary. That's a pretty good location. Now yesterday when we were looking at the NAM, we thought maybe it would be a little bit further to the west. And I think earlier today that kind of was where we were looking for initiation. So I think things have kind of just shifted a little bit east during the evening. All right, putting those boundaries back. Now let's look for the dry line. Well, down here, 65. And then we get to 59. Let me pick a different color here. Yeah, that's better. Okay, yeah, that's the dry line right there. Running from about Brady up to, I guess, around Moran, up to Seymour. And there's the triple point. So we might, if we had a little bit more heating, we might be looking for some initiation right in that area. And then the front itself, or the other storm, just a little bit to the east right there. And then, of course, we've got the tail end of the front that extends on up to the panhandle. And if we had a little more moisture, this could be an area here of upslope. Right there. Okay, back to the charts. Let's take a look at that velocity tensor magnitude. And that kind of gives us the theta E field, or the theta field itself. So we can find fronts, and I don't see any fronts at all back in this area here. That other front can definitely pick that out right there. In fact, there's another segment. So that matches up with our surface analysis. And let's look at theta E. So the highest values just west of Fort Worth up to Mineral Wells, and pretty much right up to where that storm was a little earlier. There's that storm there. So this shows the dry line. And then, of course, the frontal boundary up through there. So if we had our webcam and some paper printouts, we could certainly do that hand analysis. I'm trying to get that set up there. All right, let's look at the thermal picture. So this is another part of the synoptic analysis, and things do look pretty active in the southwest. I think we have a front in Arizona there. And then we can definitely see that other front along the Red River. Shows up very well on that GFS panel here. You can see the thickness lines all the way up to the north, about 4 of them, and then not much to the south here. So that is good support for that boundary along the Red River. So we can kind of use that to kind of look at the synoptic scale field and anticipate what kind of changes we might see over the next 12 to 24 hours. So I do think that front is going to stay. There's a lot of support for that to continue. We're probably going to see that tomorrow also. And then the cold front, that's going to be approaching from the west, I think. Another pretty strong front coming out of Canada right there. All right. So let's check out the soundings. Take a look at Fort Worth. There's Fort Worth sounding. Looks like we've got some decent moisture, mid to low 60s dew points, up to about 4,000 to 5,000 feet. And the cap a little bit stronger than expected. So it looks like the NAM did not really pick up on the details of that too well. And then above the tropical moisture, lots of dry air, and looks like an elevated moist layer up at about 18 to 30,000 feet. Okay, also the wind field looks a little bit weak up at about 5,000 feet. We want to see that a little bit stronger to really elongate that hodograph. This is fairly weak. So let's try plotting the hodograph. And there we go. We're usually looking for a hook, kind of like this. We don't really have that. You can see the lack of strong low-level winds. kind of giving us kind of a straight line photograph, except for this little segment right there. Mostly straight line. So that's conducive there to splitting. And indeed, let's check out what happened earlier today. There's the visible imagery, and you can see the cell right down here just north of Wichita Falls. And then, yeah, it does split. Let me get rid of some of this data here. See that? There's the left split, and then here's the right split. Right, so the right split is dominant right there on the Red River, and I guess the one up near Paul's Valley has dissipated. So, yeah, that's due to that straight line photograph. Okay, we'll take a look at the satellite real quick. This is the infrared imagery, and you can see the split about an hour ago. Our main dominant cell right there along the Red River. And we might also look upstream for short waves approaching. That could trigger stuff overnight. Water vapor imagery might be a little bit better for that. Let's switch over to that. Yeah, looks like we're getting some upper level lift working across the area right there. And possibly another shortwave down there in eastern Arizona. Okay, let me look at the chat real quick. So that's a pretty good overview of what we've got going on this evening. Mike Estrick reporting 55 in Denver, windy. Greg Schultz mentioning that splitting supercell. Funmatech Microsoft camera not working with Windows, typical. Indeed. Microsoft fail from Alex. Greg Schultz asks, is there no mesonet west of DFW? Well, yeah, there is the West Texas, the Texas Tech mesonet. We have to go to a slightly different website to pick that up. But I'll go ahead and bring that up anyway. METARS, we're at aviationweathercenter.gov, aviationweather.gov, and this will come up on their plots in just a second. Okay, it looks like they've got a gap there. I'm going to try College of DuPage here. No, UCAR. Let me grab UCAR here and see if they've got... Yeah, there's the Texas Tech data. You see that right there. Pretty much all of these stations right there. So, yeah, Texas Tech has done some good work trying to fill in that gap. They started putting these stations out there in the mid to late 90s. And they're definitely a good help for filling in the gaps. The only thing is we're lacking the sky condition and weather, present weather sensors. So most of those stations right now, they're back in that dry sector. And just a quick look at the chat here. 57 in Denver. Feels much cooler with sustained 20-mile-an-hour gusts. More data points would always help models, indeed. Yeah, thanks for that, Greg. And Mark Gebhardt. Looks like quite the blooming storm there on the Red River. And let's check out that storm, how it looks right now. Looks a little bit weaker. See how that core is kind of like almost dead center in the storm there. That's kind of the writing on the wall right there. And we'll take a look at the velocities in there. A little bit of broad scale rotation in there. You can see the outbounds in this area here, the inbounds right there. And the magnitudes are only about 11 to 15 knots, so looks very weak. Might be some enhanced, maybe a little bit of enhanced rotation right there, about 25 knots. That's probably an old occluded rotation back there. So anyway, you know, it's something. I'm sure there's some people right in front of that, but not much going on right now, and I would expect that to kind of continue declining as it reaches I-35. Okay, we're about time to head into the forecast. Let's see here. Thought I had some NAM products. Checking for those real quick. All right, give me just a second. We'll pull up the NAM forecast. There's a quick look at the Weather Center here. And looks good. Okay, getting the NAM configured. And there we go. That's how things look this evening. You can see the moisture, the moist sector stretching up the Red River. And let's see what happens overnight. Okay, it looks like we have a little bit of cyclogenesis way up north, so that's dragging some of the moisture up northward overnight. And then getting into tomorrow. Yeah, looks like cyclogenesis up there in northern Oklahoma. Looks like a little bit of a dry line extending southwestward like that. Cold Canadian cold front are coming out of the panhandles, kind of like that. And then the warm front, of course, like that. So I'm thinking this is pointing towards Oklahoma having some potential tomorrow. And let's check out how the soundings look up in that area. Wow, looks fairly uncapped. A little bit of a cap there. Let's see here. 3,000 feet of moisture there. Lift that with 84 degrees, and that's definitely breakable. One problem that we have, though, is there's not a whole lot of shear in this layer. A little bit, but not a whole lot. You can see the soundings, not much of a hook echo. Still got kind of a straight line going on there. Yeah, let's go down the boundary a little bit. We're looking at conditions at 0Z, weak cap. Lapse rates not too impressive there, and showing kind of a, again, looks like mostly kind of a straight line photograph. So I think based on this, I think I'm maybe looking at linear stuff later during the afternoon. And let's see how things look for Tuesday. Looks like we got a cold front pushing southward. So we're probably going to be looking at activity near and just east of Dallas, maybe in this area here. And then for Wednesday, things start pushing south. Looks like kind of a weak low there around Waco and Austin. Plenty of moisture in East Texas, so I think we're looking at pretty good potential there for heavy rain in Central and East Texas. So let's put it together and look at the forecast. There's that strong low right there. Looks like by tomorrow afternoon, think we're looking at a warm front up all the way up in Kansas. And then the other boundary looks like that extends down through the El Paso area. And somewhere through here, probably a dry line. And the model going for, looks like linear activity through Oklahoma tomorrow evening into the morning hours, pretty much up and down I-44 there. And then for Tuesday, activity shifts south into Texas. Looks like one boundary kind of through there. And then for Wednesday, things just keep pushing further and further south. And then by Thursday, it looks like the activity is shifting into the southeast U.S. right there. A little bit of a rain event there for New York towards Thursday and Friday, then looks pretty quiet going into Saturday and Sunday. And here's that cold blast coming in, 1040 millibar high from Montana. There's the leading edge of that right there. And that's going to rapidly shift southward around Sunday and Monday. And that's probably going to come through dry. At least that's the way it looks at this time. And another reinforcing shot. That's probably going to shut down our severe weather potential, maybe a brief window around the 4th. And more cold air coming south. Pattern northwest to southeast right there. And it looks like only towards the 10th do we start seeing Pacific systems moving west to east. And that's the end of the forecast. So for those of you chasing, it looks like we're going to have kind of a lull over the next 10 to 14 days, and then possibly things picking up for mid-April. Looks like things are pretty unsettled there in California. Okay, so that's the forecast. Hope you enjoyed the presentation. Not a whole lot going on. We'll check on that storm out in the Red River and see what that's doing. Still looking a little bit weak. Let's check the velocity fields. Pretty good outbound right there. 25 knots, but the inbounds are still a little bit weak. So very modest rotation in that cell. And that's going to be tracking towards Gainesville, and it'll be interesting to see if that even makes it to that location. Okay, trying to catch my place here in the chat. Carl Berghoff says, don't forget to like, guys. Fun with Tech says, bringing up the NAM stuff killed the feed. Oh, yeah, dropped 1800 frames. Sorry about that. All right, we'll try to remember not to do that there. Do I know if there's any efforts to increase Radioson launch points from Alex Front? Nothing I know of. Unfortunately, I really do wish we could fill in some of the data, especially in Central Texas. We really need that. Mike Estwick says, NOAA has been having to fight not to lose congressional funding. Mike also says, Old Man Winter flipping us the bird on his parting shot for the year. Indeed. Ryan Toomey says, thanks, Tim. I appreciate that. Adam Davis says, haven't heard thunder in months. And Mike Estwick says we had thunder grapple in Colorado about a week ago. And thanks, Erica Baker, posting the channel on social media. All right, that's about all I got for tonight. We'll close out music here. I really have to be careful with that because I'm playing this out of a speaker, and if I turn this up, then we get kind of like feedback going on, so I got to be careful about that. All right, anyway, that's about all I have here. I appreciate you watching the channel, and we will see you tomorrow. Take care.